Welcome to this brand new series of the Birth and Baby Business Show, which we are calling Lessons from a Birth and Baby Business Owner. We will be speaking to those who are in or who have been in the birth or baby business world and ask them questions that you would like to know the answers to on how they got to where they are today in business. My name's Anna LaGrange and I'm one half of BABBA Business, the Birth and Baby Business Academy.
And my name is Liz Stamford and I am the other half of BABBA Business. And today we have the pleasure of talking to Hollie Grant. So Hollie is an award-winning reformer and Pilates instructor, personal trainer, author and founder of the Bump Plan. Hollie has worked in fitness for over 12 years, personal training and teaching Pilates across London and in her own studio. She's the author of 2 books, The Model Method and The Bump Plan. Bump Plan is also the name of the first online holistic fitness plan that takes women through the journey of trying to conceive, pregnancy, and into the postpartum period with tailored workouts, and is loved by over 40,000 women worldwide. Wow. That sounds amazing, and I can't wait to hear more about it. So I think my first question for you, Hollie, is how did you go from being in the fitness industry to kind of tailoring it towards more of the kind of like birth preparation or birth and baby world? Was that like a really smooth, easy transition? How did it all come about for you?
Yeah, so I've mainly worked with women, to be honest. In the 12 years that I've worked in the fitness industry, I started off teaching reformer Pilates in a group reformer studio in London, and then another one, and kind of progressed from there. And then eventually opened my own studio, which I wanted to be really private. I think I'd taught in so many group classes that are chaotic and people are late and people are trying to talk to you. And one person turns up and they've got a shoulder injury. Another person turns up, they've got a knee injury. Someone turns up and they're pregnant, but they didn't warn you. And so I really wanted a studio where it was just one person. You could really connect with them. You could really focus on them. They didn't need to feel self-conscious because there were other people in the room. So that's what I set up about 10 years ago in London. And so I taught there for a long time. And so it was one-to-one. And it just so happened that it was 99% female. And, you know, maybe because of the location as well, a lot of them were either trying to get pregnant, postnatal, or going through the menopause. And I found that really, really interesting. And I really wanted to make sure that we were, I don't know, taking women through these parts of their life where maybe they're suddenly a bit confused as to what they can do from an exercise point of view, or where there's not a huge amount of research. So I really loved that. And then actually I got pregnant myself, and I suddenly realized that actually, first of all, the information seemed really confusing, and that there wasn't a lot of inspiring, empowering pregnancy fitness out there. A lot of it was yoga, which I love yoga, don't get me wrong, but it was very low level, lots of breath work, which is also fantastic, but it didn't really kind of scratch that itch for people who are used to throwing weights around and running and jumping and climbing. And so, yeah, I guess I noticed that there was a gap in the market that I needed filling for myself. And so it made sense, and I had the qualifications and the experience that I would be the person to hopefully fill that gap. And so that's where the Bump Plan kind of started, or the idea of it kind of started.
That's amazing. And it's so interesting to hear even just part of your journey there. So making the investment in your own studio, did that feel like a scary leap to take?
So if I think back, I've always been interested in business. So it was always, I think I was always going to end up here. Before I worked in the fitness industry, I was a pastry chef. And I had my own business there. And anyone who's ever worked in catering knows that it is, wow, it is exactly like it shows on the TV. You know, it's really unsociable hours, really stressful environments, often a terrible kind of male head chef figure in the kitchen, screaming and swearing. And it just was not me. You know, you can just ask me nicely and I'll do it. You don't need to swear at me kind of situation. So I had my own business, and then obviously I went into fitness, and then very quickly I don't know, I just always feel like I could do this better, which sounds really arrogant and narcissistic, but I think you spot the things that people maybe are doing wrong with your business head, and you think, well, I could do this better and everyone's happier. So I knew that setting up on my own was a bit risky, especially in London because the rent's so high. But I'd already kind of grown this group of one-to-one clients who I knew would follow me wherever I went. And I knew what my outgoings would be in a month, and I knew that I would break even straight away. But I also had saved up money, didn't borrow any money from the bank. So I also knew that it was only, me that was funding this, which was less scary. And also I kind of said to my clients, look, if you buy sessions now, if you buy a pack of sessions now, I'll give you a slight discount. So they actually basically funded it for me. They all bought sessions. So I knew they were coming with me. I knew I could afford at least a few months of the rent. I managed to pay for all of the equipment because Pilates and treadmills and all the equipment's very expensive. So it felt like a really low risk option for me. So actually it wasn't that scary. It was more just really exciting.
Yeah, it definitely sounds it. And you've just given like a little bit of a roadmap there for people who are like, oh yeah, I want my own studio. They've written all that down there. They're checking it off their list to see if they're ready to do it as well. So thank you for that. The other thing, I don't want to monopolize but I've got so many questions. What I wanted to ask was, we work with a lot of people who are very, innovative, and they want to bring new ideas to the market. So how did you kind of go about going, oh, there's a gap in the market, I'm going to fill that gap, and then end up with the bump plan? Like, is that too big a journey for you to describe to us, or can you?
No, I feel like there's lots of parts of my life that have just, it sounds really woo-woo. I'm a big believer of like everything works out in the end. So even though pastry chefing, that ended really badly, and I was really badly depressed, I was on medication, and it was really rough ending. Actually, even that, that was because it wasn't the right thing for me, and it showed me what I didn't want from life. But anyway, so when it comes to the bump plan, so what happened, I was found out I was pregnant. I hadn't really worked out in my head exactly what I wanted the bump plan to be. And I think originally it was called like the bump method, but I knew that I wanted it to be that the workouts were during my own pregnancy, so that people felt really safe and that they were on a journey with me, and they knew I would never give them anything that was unsafe, because why would I be doing that myself? And so so I filmed the workouts during my pregnancy, and it was quite scary because normally with businesses, how it's normally shown, and taught is you come up with a concept, you create your own business plan, you do forecasts and budgets, and then you get investment, or you take a loan on, and blah, blah, blah. But kind of like with my studio in London, it didn't really work. It wasn't that way. It was like, I know this is going to work. I'm just going to have to kind of trust it and put money into it, knowing, trusting it. Anyway, so we got a film crew, a location house, and I started filming right at the start of my pregnancy, all the way through, getting this footage that I knew I would do something with, but I didn't know what yet. And so I had all that amazing footage, and then I had a really traumatic birth, and I think it just kind of threw me. And then I sort of sat on that footage for a while, and then COVID hit. And our studio was temporarily closed by Boris, understandably. And so I had to take all of my teaching online. And for people who are pregnant, they were being told, we don't really know what the risks are for you during COVID. We don't know what the risks are to your baby. Just stay home. Don't go anywhere. And so it's a really scary time for them. And so actually I took the method I was teaching in those workouts when I was pregnant, which is low impact cardio, Pilates and functional training. And I took them online and I taught them as live classes, and they were packed. And the feedback I was getting at the end is like, this is exactly the type of fitness I've been looking for. I'm really bored of like just sitting there staring into space and breathing. I'm really lonely. Like, it's great to be in a community. And so that kind of gave me the push that actually I need to do something with all that footage that I know these women would love. And then, I can be really open. Also, the government were offering out bounce back loans, right? So they were saying, we know this is a really difficult time for you guys, your businesses, while they're closed. You can borrow money from us, and it's really low risk. You don't have to pay it back for a while. It'll be low interest, and it's not against your house. And everyone around us was saying to us, borrow the maximum amount. And I grew up with a single mum who said, don't ever get a credit card. If you want something, you save up and then you buy it. So for me to borrow money that I didn't necessarily need was quite weird. But even our accountant was saying, take the full amount. So we took that bounce back loan and we decided to put all of it into doing the bump plan properly and really well. And so we hired branding consultants, marketing agencies, social media team, everything, and built the bump plan. And it was really scary for us because I'd never invested that much money into anything. But we forecast that we might have 9 members, I think, in like the first month. And in the first day, we had hundreds of people sign up. We ran out of all of our stock. It was Christmas. It was chaos, but it was amazing. And it was kind of overnight. It was, it went really, really well. So, yeah, I think it just all the stars aligned.
Oh my gosh, I just love that story so much. So it's amazing, isn't it? It's so good. And so you did take a bit of a leap of faith, thinking, you obviously believe in what you had and what you created, and you really tuned in to what your ideal clients needed. But at the same time, you just had this opportunity to not do it step by step, but to really just go for it and do it at the best, the absolute best way you possibly can. And I think 2020 was obviously it was difficult in so many ways, but for those of us who are in the online education space, it was a boom year. It just was. And it's probably been following that for some of us that has been harder, but certainly 2020 for those of us who were already online, already knew how to do things online, had something ready to go. It was just a phenomenal experience to be able to offer people what they needed, and it wasn't wherever you are in the world, you can help somebody. So I really love that. And my question about all of that is, you obviously put the investment into the product, the background of it stuff. How on earth did you manage the number of people coming in, like the actual customer service, looking after them? I mean, that must have been, if you were kind of forecasting for 9 people, that must have been such a big shock and a difficult thing to deal with at the time. How did you manage that as a team?
Yeah, we learned some lessons along the way, namely that we launched the pregnancy plan, and then we've also then launched a postnatal plan and then a TTC plan, and all 3 of those have launched at Christmas time, basically. And it's never happening again. Every year my mum says to me, stop launching products at Christmas, because it actually kind of slightly ruins Christmas, especially when you've got kids. So lessons learned with it, but when we first launched, everyone who signed up received a luxury starter pack. And we really felt that, especially given that people were at home and it was an online product, sometimes when you buy something online, you forget about it for about a week, and then you're like, oh, and you're in bed and you're like, oh, I still haven't done that workout yet. It's so different to going to a physical space like a studio, where you feel like you're going to let someone down if you don't show up, blah, blah, blah. So we felt like they needed something that really marked the beginning of their plan. So we sent everyone a starter pack. And so the mistakes that we made there were that, like we said, we thought we might get 9 people before Christmas, and then we got hundreds, and we ran out of stock. It was Christmas and no one was in their office. When even the people that did reply who were out of office were like, I'm really sorry, but I'm not back in the office until like the 5th of Jan, and then it will take 4 days to get to you. So we learned some lessons there, and that was a really big shock. But we just had to keep remembering, like, it's a nice problem to have, and we're just going to have to be really honest with the members. And they were fantastic, because I think they were also kind of like, they'd been waiting for it. They were just really kind about it, and it was Christmas, so they were kind of like, I can wait. But also, I always like to be really honest as well, in that. So my husband joined. So basically, this has been my business for 12 years. And then, years later, sadly, we lost my husband's mum, my mother-in-law, in like a tragic accident. So it was totally unexpected. And we left London and moved to Oxford to be nearer to his family. And at that time, I was writing the model method, and I was really struggling. The business was the studio was packed, and obviously I now wasn't around the corner, having to hire people. And so I said to my husband, when he was kind of ready to get back to work, would you consider joining me and working with me? And he was kind of like, you know what, for now, I think that works really well. I don't know where my head's at. And that was about 6 years ago. And so my husband has worked with me for 6 years. He's basically our marketing director, but he calls himself the dog's body. But it means that, like, between the 2 of us and childcare, we share everything. We both work 3 or 4 days a week, and then the other days we're with the kids. And so actually, like between the two of us, we can just get stuff done. And I guess that maybe people that you hire, you would never ask them to, like, at 10 o'clock at night approve like some copy for a website or something. So I always like to be really transparent that whilst the bump plan went bonkers and it was crazy and stressful, I definitely couldn't have done it without the other person who's the main person in my business being my husband, or at least a family member, because there were lots of all-nighters, Christmas Eve packing starter packs, all sorts of things. So it's a really unique situation, I think.
Definitely. No, thanks for sharing that as well, because I think people do sort of look at it and go, like, how on earth did she do that? Or she must have has like a massive team of people around the clock. But no, it's like you and your husband late at night trying to solve problems.
Yeah. And there's a few things on that as well. Like, I hate the thought of people looking, because we do get those comments quite a lot, like, how do you do it all? Like, how do you juggle it all? And I like to be really transparent, because I'm not juggling it all. I do have husband who can take the kids if I've got a podcast and it's his day of work, and but there's a few things that people sometimes misread. Like, I grew up not with lots of money. I'm not from a rich family by any stretch. I had a single mum, so there's that. Often when people find out I work with my husband, I cannot tell you the comments that I get. It tends to be along the vein of like, oh, is he the money behind it? Or is like he the finance guy? Is he the brains behind it? I cannot tell you like how many comments you're like, do you realize what you just said? So I guess that's the other thing, that my husband is the first person to say, when people say, what do you do? He's like, she's my boss. And so there's that. And then, also that I don't do it all. I do drop lots of balls and I do make lots of mistakes as well. But you do what you can, don't you? You do what you can fit in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get asked that quite a lot myself, like, how do you juggle? Because now having 2 businesses and 3 kids and everything that kind of comes with that, people often say like, how do you do it? But I think a lot of it comes with the fact that you're your own boss, so you can choose your hours. And like, so if I'm answering a text message at 9:30 at night or pinging off an email, like, I don't really mind, because I can also get that time back if I want to in another way. And then you have the flexibility of like, being able to, well, within reason, being able to, go to pick children up from school or go to children's activities or plays, which I know I would never have had the opportunity to do if I hadn't have become, a business owner and work for myself. So there's kind of, there's flexibility in it, there's hard work in it, and it's certainly never as easy as it looks, I think, is the message for for everybody.
So true. Often I guess our family are the ones maybe that don't understand it the most, particularly like our parents, where they're kind of like, my gosh, you guys have to work so hard, and like, why are you working on a Saturday morning and things like that? But actually, on Monday, it was beautiful where we live. We live right by the sea in Dorset, and it was a really sunny day, and then it was going to rain for like a week. And so Stu and I were like, when we pick up Freya from school, why don't we just can off work, go to the beach for a few hours? So we did that. And then it meant when the kids were in bed, I then sat on the sofa with my laptop and did the work I hadn't managed to do then. And it's like, yes, I'm working at 8 o'clock at night, but it's because I was able to just go to the beach at 3:30 and swim in the sea. So that's it. It's flexible. And there are lots of sacrifices you make, but also, how many jobs can you just say, I'm going at 3:30 so I can go to the beach?
Yeah, it's the dream. Sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Except when it's like VAT time and you're hating the fact you've got your own business. But yeah, you take the rough with the smooth, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. You've touched on this a few times, but I'm just wondering, is there anything particular that you think, I wish I'd done that differently, or any regrets on your business journey so far?
Oh, how honest I want to be here. So yeah, I guess, you know what? So there's a really big one for me. And so basically we set up the bump plan, the pregnancy one, and using that initial business loan, which we basically just didn't even kind of consider, because we were like, we don't have to pay it back yet. It's so low risk, blah, blah, blah. And then the bump plan was great, and our cash flow was doing really, really well. And then we were like, you know what? Everyone was getting to the end of the pregnancy plan. They were having their babies, and they're like, now what? Please, can you help me? So I always knew I needed to do a postnatal plan. So we did that, and we self-funded it using our business, our cash flow. And that was thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of pounds. Did that. Everything's still going great. There's still money in the bank, And then I had this, what I feel arrogantly is a really great idea that also, I was trying to get pregnant with Kit, and I was exercising in a certain way, and I'd done all the research about what you can and can't do. And it's a real murky grey area, especially for people who are having IVF and things like that. And so I thought there needs to be a plan for people who are trying to get pregnant that will help support them so that when they get pregnant, they're really strong. So we created the TTC plan. And that is not normally how you would fund creating, researching, developing new products. You would take on money or investment or a loan. And so I think that was a big mistake we made, is that we kept using our own business's funds to create these very expensive products. And that eventually will catch up with you. And it can make it really difficult for you to then use your cash flow for things like scaling your business. So, we had to wait a while before we were in a position to be able to then really start scaling the business, when we should have been doing that from day one. So I think that's the mistake I always make, is I'm so nervous about taking on money for people. We've been asked by so many investors over the years if they can be involved, and we've said, no, we'll do this ourselves. We've got the money, but you do run the risk that you then don't have the money to do what your cash flow is for.
Wow, that's really interesting, and thank you for sharing that as well, because that's really honest of you to say that you feel like that was something that you may have done differently. And do you feel like you don't obviously have to go into any detail, do you feel like you've kind of caught up with that now? You feel like you're back on track in terms financially, and would you take an investment for the future product you might make or service you might make?
I don't know. And again, I think it's because everything that we've done, like with the studio and with the developing of the bump plan, has always been just really reactive, because it's been like, I know this is going to work. It's not been the same as someone who is sat there, coming up with business plans, pitching to investors and things like that. It's been like, we need to do this. I know it's going to be great. Let's do this. And this is how much it's going to cost and stuff. I don't know. I think it's very different if you are developing products from scratch, and there's more risk. So maybe you borrow money rather than using your own money. But also throw into the mix having a baby. So lots of the people that are listening, I'm sure, are probably in their businesses because they have been that target audience. They are their target audience. Yeah. They were parents, or they were pregnant, or they were trying to conceive, and they realized there was a gap in the market, and that's why they've come up with this amazing product or business. But throw into that, you're probably also at some point having a baby or parenting. And so, we launched the TTC plan, and then I had a baby. And it takes a while before you kind of get your head completely back to normal. I still don't get much sleep, but we're through the rough kind of first year. So now everything's all aligned, and we're in kind of a big scaling growth period. Right. And Kit can, I can literally see my husband now putting Kit in the car to go out for the day. And it's all kind of everything's in the right order, but sometimes you just have to be a bit patient to get to that point and know that it will come.
Yeah, definitely. And you make choices that, as well, don't you? Sorry, go on, Anna.
No, it's all right. I was just going to say, I love that message, because I think so often people will put something together, whether they've put, lots of investment into it or not, even if it's something that hasn't necessarily cost them much, but they expect results straight away, and often without even really having tried different marketing techniques or, tried different things out with their audience. I think people can get despondent and really quickly when they're not getting the results that they hoped for or expected, and then perhaps go off after the next thing. And what I hear in your story is that you've really, each time you've done something, you've really stuck with it and made it work, before perhaps moving on to the next thing, or seeing another gap in the market and thinking, we'd be the best people to create that. And I love that. I think it's really good. I think it's such a good business message. I think the other thing is be kind to yourself, because actually the online world is just changing so much all the time. It's crazy. Even just thinking like I said about 2020 compared to now, people bought these online products, these online services, and then they almost got like a bit overwhelmed with it, and they were like, oh, I've bought all these things and I'm not using them all. And then they perhaps, and then perhaps there was obviously financial things going on as well around the world. So I think it's a constantly changing market. And I think also because of 2020, the way people were consuming so much online information, people got a bit tired of that as well. They got tired of looking at screens, being online all the time. They wanted to get outside a bit more again, and perhaps and also they had to go back to work and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's just been so many changes that we've had to keep up with. So I think any business that is willing to try different things out and try and keep up with that is doing the right thing. Because if you had business plans that took, I don't know, like a year to put together, before you know it, the market will have changed again anyway. So I think the way that, you've done it is really the only way in our world. We've got to be really, really flexible and ready to try different things out in different ways.
Yeah, I'm ready to pivot, and just trust that your customers better than anybody else, hopefully, and just be the first person to do it, because if you don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah, that is such an important message as well. I think people have ideas and then sometimes they're like too scared to act on them. And I so believe, what is it, that Elizabeth Gilbert book that I read, Big Magic, and she talks about how ideas jump from one person to the next and they don't belong to you. So you just have to, once you've had that idea, like just go for it, just do it. And that's really what happened with us when we set up BABBA. It felt like it had a force of its own, and it was just, it needed to be done, and there was a gap in the market, and here we are. So I can really resonate with what you're saying, and your journey has been amazing. And so I would like to ask you then, what would you say is your or has been your biggest lesson in business so far, like from the whole time that you've been self-employed or running your own business? What is your biggest lesson that you could share with us?
Oh gosh, so many.
Sorry, that's a big question.
No, it's fine. The biggest lesson, I mean, the finance one for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think the thing I've always found very difficult is that it's very easy to underestimate me, I think. And so because of that, I get quite a lot of imposter syndrome. And I really struggle with, feeling like people will trust me from a business point of view. I think because my job isn't, lots of people will see me as a fitness instructor, so they'll think like there's business people behind the scenes and I'm just like a puppet and someone's like pulling on my strings. I find it really difficult that people don't presume or don't know that does also mean that I'm the business head behind all of this. So I guess I've always, the main problems for me have always just been how I can communicate to people that I'm the founder or I'm the director, because they'll often ask like for the person in charge of the marketing decisions or the person in charge of the finance decisions and things like that. So I think maybe I could do more of a job of calling people out on that, or I don't know, maybe how I conduct myself. I don't know. I think so. The biggest lesson, I don't think I've learned it yet, or what the solution is, but I guess the biggest issue for me has always been trying to get, sadly often men, to understand that I make the business decisions and that this is my baby, and that I do actually have business acumen. It's not just a body on camera. So I don't know if anyone knows what actually the solution to that is, how you can, rather than constantly having to prove to people, and then they're like, oh, I can't believe, I didn't realize that you would be so good on Zero, or like, I didn't realize that you would understand like a balance sheet. I think how do we manage to get that up front without people having to eventually realize that you do know what you're talking about? Answers on a postcard, but that has probably been the biggest issue, other than the funding issue for us as a business.
Wow. And I think you mentioned imposter syndrome, and that is, goodness, doesn't everybody have that? It feels like it's a real issue, particularly amongst female business owners, that it can just be something that can really impact people, that can keep them stuck. It can stop them from doing the things that they really, really want to do. And Anna and I talk about it a lot with our clients and with our members. And, it isn't always something that is just going to go away. It's something that rears its head quite often when we are scaling and we're doing something new or we're learning something new. So can really resonate with that one as well. And so what I was hearing you saying is that maybe you're not yet owning your status. And that's like an ongoing thing. And I think that people will really resonate with that who are watching and listening to this, because we often hear our clients talk about their little businesses, and and people often say, oh, how's your little business going, and things like that, when in reality people have no idea like how their business is going, or even it's so patronizing, isn't it? So I can really see that as an issue and something that a lot of us have to deal with. So thanks again for sharing that.
I think with the imposter syndrome one as well, sometimes I have to remind myself that, especially in the fitness industry, there's a lot of like absolute tripe out there. And I think the people that don't have imposter syndrome probably should. Like, they're the ones who are like believing everything that they think is accurate, and if they're not double checking their research and their stats, they're just like, this is what you need to do if you need to lose weight or what have you. And they're just so confident in what they say that actually they're wrong. Yeah. And sometimes those who have imposter syndrome are the ones double checking their stats or double checking the research and making sure that they don't say the wrong thing. And they're the ones that should be speaking louder, which is a bit of a shame. And the other one, and so I still do get comments from people who maybe first meet me who are like, but what's your main job? I'm like, yeah, this is my main job. Yeah. So it's really common, even if you do have a bigger job where you've got a team and it is your main source of income for your whole family, you'll still get those comments. And I just let it wash off me, because they don't know our situation.
You have to. I sometimes feel that as well when I'm at a family thing and somebody will like say to me, like, oh, how's it going, and what's what, like, are you doing anything else, or are you still, they still think I was doing what I was doing like over a decade ago, and I'm just at that point where I can't be bothered to explain it. You just kind of go, yeah, still doing that.
It's okay.
Good. Yeah. It's all good. Yeah, it's all part of the process.
Yeah. And it's not meant with any malicious intent. It's just, people don't realise how amazing female business owners can be, maybe.
Yes.
So
I think so too, definitely.
And it often says a lot more about them than it does about you, especially perhaps some of those men that you might come across in the business world, who just aren't used to seeing, there's not enough women in business. We know that there's not enough women doing amazing things. There's not enough female CEOs. There's not enough female billionaires even, you know what I mean? There's not enough. And that's part of the problem, isn't it? And so hopefully we can help, bring up the next generations to see that differently. I know certainly my sons hear a lot of this, so they get it in the ear from me, my style of feminism. So hopefully that is something that is going to change. I really do.
I think also in this market, in this industry, like, the baby and birthing market, it's often sort of seen as being maybe quite small and niche, but actually when you think about how big an audience that actually is, it's huge. And there are still lots of gaps in the market because lots of brands, there's a really big brand I have in mind that I was a global ambassador for donkey's years, and I'd trained the owners, and I kept saying to them, you really need to do a maternity range, because I was pregnant, and they were like, no, it's just not, we just don't think it's a big enough market. And there's only so much you can push. And I think they've probably missed the boat on that. I just think people don't realise how big a market it is and how lucrative it is. So I think that's probably another reason why, if you're a woman who works in that industry, people are going to think it's just a little side project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it can be so much more, and so much bigger, definitely.
Very frustrating. So we'll finish up soon, but I've just got one more question, which is, what piece of advice have you got for a birth or baby business owner who wants to create, a business that's going to make a big impact?
That I can only really draw from my own experiences of kind of just really trusting your gut, especially if, like we've said, you are that target audience. You know better than if you, sometimes we might ask our partner or we might ask our mum, and I've joked in the past that I could tell my mum that I'm like gonna, polish turds and sell them, and she'd be like, do it, you'll be amazing, oh my god, you're so, like, be careful who you ask. But on the opposite side of that, you might get people who are like, I just don't think that's going to work, because they are not your target audience. And so I think you need to be careful about who you ask, trust your gut. If you really do believe in something, you know better than a lot of other people. Don't be disheartened by, your granddad saying, oh, I don't think that, maternity pads for people who've just had babies will work. So I think, I just think I don't know, I guess the whole way through this, I've had to just be guided by my gut. I haven't necessarily gone down a strictly business path. And it's worked out in the end. So there's a lot to be said for trusting your gut and just knowing your audience really, really well and what they need.
Yeah, I love that. We totally agree with that. It's such good advice, and trust your gut and kind of do it anyway. I think is a brilliant way to do well in business. Thanks so much, Hollie, and do share a little bit. We'll obviously put it in the show notes, but if you'd be able to tell people how they can find you and your products.
Yes, if you want to follow me personally, I'm at the Pilates PT on Instagram, or the Bump Plan is the Bump Plan on Instagram, and thebumpplan.com online. They're probably the best places to find me. And if you are pregnant, trying to conceive, postnatal at the moment, then the Bump Plan, all 3 plans have a 7-day free trial, so you can always go in and just be a bit nosy. But otherwise on my personal page, I tend to share more about kind of juggling a business with being a mum. Instead, whenever I get the time to actually post on there, because your focus is so much on your business that Instagram account doesn't tend to get as much action.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. We'll put all those details in the show notes. And just to everyone who's been listening or watching, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you did enjoy it, please do drop a comment on YouTube, like or subscribe to our podcast as well. Drop a review so that we can keep doing these wonderful interviews and bring you lots of inspiration and motivation. So until next time, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.